Dino Crisis is a game that has been gathering dust among Capcom's many IPs, so it's no wonder that fans have been clamoring for a game like it. This led to Team Kill Media taking matters into their own hands and developed a sort of spiritual successor to the series with the release of Code Violet. But is this game something that Dino Crisis fans have been waiting for? Join us as we check out Code Violet. Let's get this out of the gate. No, Code Violet isn't the Dino Crisis successor you've been looking for. While the game does have you fight dinosaurs and does give homage to the cult classic in certain sections, everything else about the game doesn't quite hit the mark. The game takes place in a facility that is currently being overrun by multiple dinosaurs, and your character, Violet, must find a way to escape the chaos. And that is pretty much all we can say about the story. While the intro section does a decent job of adding a sense of intrigue, after a dream sequence, Violet is suddenly awoken in a locked pod, and everything around her is thrown into disarray. Everything about its setup then crashes after the first chase scene, and the game's narrative turns into this jumbled, confusing mess that had us scratching our heads most of the time. Emotional scenes feel empty because we can't sympathize with Violet since there's absolutely nothing we know about her. Scenes that are intended to be frightening often fail to have an impact due to the humorous animations or mismatched music. Even getting the special suit felt weird since it looked like it was designed to showcase Violet's assets. Which is strange, since the developers didn't want the game to be released on PC since they didn't want people modding vulgar things onto the character. And then they do stuff like this. This carries on the whole game, all 6 hours of it. The game tries very hard to make the plot mysterious, revealing nothing about the characters or the central plot until about halfway through or the very end. But it never sticks the landing. The same can be said about the gameplay loop, as it is very rough and practically a chore to play. While it is clear that Code Violet takes a lot of inspiration from games like Resident Evil and even Dead Space, it completely falls flat with how clunky the controls are and how dumb the enemy AI systems are. First of all, the game's shooting mechanics feel like they lack impact, and pairing this with some very bullet-spongy enemies make for a very unsatisfying combat experience. While the game does feature an upgrade system for your weapons, you really don't feel it since it takes the same amount of shots to take down the enemies. On the plus side, the enemy AI are so easily predictable that combat encounters never really pose a challenge. Now that we think about it, is it really a plus side? The only time it ever poses a challenge is when you end up getting swarmed by multiple enemies. But even then, all you have to do is throw a grenade and you're all set. Another thing about the game is that it features quite a few mechanics that end up feeling useless because of how they were implemented. One such example is the stealth mechanics, as the game does allow you to crouch and prone to try to sneak your way around enemies. The keyword is try, as more often than not, enemies already know where you are once you enter the room, which then goes back to this frustrating loop of trying to shoot down enemies with the clunky gun controls. Another mechanic that annoyed us is the injury system, as the game barely tells you what you're suffering from or how to cure it, and you're left scouring your inventory for any way to get rid of the status effect that is damaging you. Adding to this frustration are the many bugs and glitches we experienced while playing. There are times when we couldn't use any items in our inventory, or some of our progress resets for some reason. While the game at times does look good visually, especially during the sections that take you outside of the facility, everything else once again falls short with how lifeless the character models and animations are. The game clearly lacks any aesthetic direction, as the environments all feel like a mishmash of random themes thrown together. There's one facility in the game where it's supposed to be a preservation lab for dinosaurs, but the decor inside the seemingly militarized building was laid out like a museum, complete with displays and exhibits. That's not all, as there are even portraits and paintings of aliens and different skeletons, which seem to be generic Unreal Engine portrait assets. In a way, the stages feel like an asset flip, as if they laid out the map first and found that it felt too empty, then added all the unnecessary decor even if it didn't make sense aesthetically. Even the character models of certain characters look dated and generic. And that's not even talking about the design of the very first boss you encounter. What was supposed to be a scary reveal made us laugh out loud at how dumb the model and animations look. Like, what even is that thing? One other thing about the visuals is how grainy and blurry everything looks, which makes going through the levels such a pain. The visuals are so unoptimized that the editor playing this physically got a headache from playing the game. It also doesn't help that there's no way to change the visual settings of the game, and whatever you see is what you get. The ambient music and sounds are surprisingly decent, effectively adding to the game's horror elements and atmosphere. However, it's a shame that everything else isn't great. They tend to feel out of place or just downright horrible. While some of the voice actors did a decent job with their respective characters, there is a severe lack of voice lines during gameplay, making the game feel hollow and empty in motion. Code Violet is a classic case of looks can be deceiving, or in this particular case, the trailers can be deceiving. The horror elements are absent due to the game's lackluster presentation and uninteresting gameplay, making it a survival horror title that tries to emulate the genre's greats and fails at almost every aspect. That's why we here at Game8 are giving Code Violet a 42 out of 100. Everything about the game feels confusing, and it honestly feels like as if it was made to cash in on a void that people have been clamoring for. For $50, Code Violet is definitely not worth it, and we wouldn't recommend this game to anyone, even die-hard fans of Dino Crisis, since it might even feel disrespectful to them. And you could probably play any other dinosaur-themed shooter, and it would probably play better than this. Nothing about this game is worth that much money, unless you want to waste a few hours on an obscure plot that tends to bewilder you the whole time. So, what do you guys think of Code Violet? Will there ever be a game that can fill the Dino Crisis-shaped hole in people's hearts? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more gaming-related content. This has been Game8, and we'll see you in the next video.